One of the biggest questions I get asked is how I find bikes. I touched on this in a video previously, which I'll link above. But today I thought I would go through a bit of a journey on how I came into the ownership of a 1994 Saracen Andes that rides basically fine, so I just got to clean it pretty good.
So I'm going to split this into 3 categories: where to look, how to look, and is it worth it? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not about to reinvent the wheel here. A lot of the things I'm about to say, you probably already know, but there's a few little things that I do that may be slightly different that might help you find that better bike. I feel pretty confident about it. So when it comes to where to look, it's pretty much down to 2 places: eBay, Facebook Marketplace. If you're lucky enough to know a load of people with bike shops, especially people that work on resto mods and kind of like custom bikes, things like that, they probably have a pile of frames knocking about that you can go and have a little rummage through, and they'll probably do you a pretty sweet deal. But the main places we're going to be looking is probably going to be places like eBay and Facebook. The second half of where is going to be down to location. What I tend to do is when I'm using Facebook Marketplace, I tend to not look at London. London is generally, everything's more expensive. People either know what they're worth, or they just kind of just say, this is how much I think it should be worth, and they charge you ridiculous money for something that's not worth that. I think that made sense. What I do try to do is when I go home to visit my family in Somerset, there's lots of older people down there who just have stuff that they've had in garages for many years and they just want to get rid of it now. I go buy those bikes. And then when eBay is kind of the same. If you're willing to travel to go and collect these items, you're probably going to have a better deal. If you, for example, if you're getting one shipped to you, they always charge more for the bikes, even if they don't know how much it's worth, or even if it is just something they're just trying to get rid of. They ain't going to make it easy for you. They want you to come and collect it, so it's easy for them. So if you're willing to travel, you're going to get yourself a better deal there as well. Now on to my favourite part, the how you look for bikes. The number one thing that I do is not search for the bike in particular. For example, if you are looking for a on-one inbred, don't search on-one inbred, because you're going to get a bike that someone probably absolutely adores and loves, spent all these millions of years looking after it. Millions of years? They've looked after it and it's their pride and joy. They want their money's worth when they sell it to you. But if you type in old bike or bike frame or something a little bit less kind of specific, but just in the genre of bicycle is actually a really good one, because someone who's writing bicycle probably has no idea about anything, and it's just that's the most official name for the thing they're trying to shift. But you may then get lucky scrolling through for hours and hours and hours, finding that little gem, something that someone's had in their shed for years and they don't even know what it is. It's just something that appeared one day and they just want a shot of it. That's the one you'll look for. But I also believe, and I've been putting this to the test recently, there's also a perfect time to be looking for these bikes, especially when you're looking at Facebook Marketplace. I was recently in my hometown for a bank holiday, and the weather was really, really nice that weekend. So I imagine a lot of people are going to be in their gardens, potentially in their sheds, in their garages, doing some kind of like gardening and kind of shifting and some chores and some of those jobs you do at the beginning of the nice weather to kind of just clear up some space. And I bet there's some people just trying to get rid of some bikes. And I was right. What I found was the bike that you just saw at the beginning of the video. It was a Saracen Andes. The picture that was on the Facebook Marketplace, which I'm showing you on the screen right now, I'm sure, didn't showed that it was a Saracen, and it definitely didn't say which model it was. I actually am lucky enough that I have a following on here and Instagram that I put on my story on Instagram and asked around to see if anybody knew what kind of bike it was. And there's a few people that helped me out. But I realised that some of you guys probably don't have that many people to help you work out these bikes. So if you're someone like that, how do you work out if it's worth it? So let's move on to the next one. Is it worth it? This bit is kind of a little bit more subjective. It's kind of what I think's worth it is definitely not going to be the same as what everybody else thinks is worth it. But I'm going to share with you what I think's worth it and kind of what I go for, and that might help you with what you think. Does that make any sense? I look for 3 things: group set, paint, colour, and then steerer. The group set is pretty straightforward. If the crank is metal or looks like it's metal, it's generally going to be a mid-tier kind of mid-range kind of group set, and it will probably be fine. If you can see some logos on it and you can tell which group set it is and you can do a little Google, then great, you know exactly what you're getting into. But my main thing is looking at the crank. If the crank is metal, in my experience to date at least, that generally means it's a mid-tier to maybe even a decent high-end group set of the time. If it's plastic, you're probably going to tear it all off and throw it in the bin most of the time. When it comes to paint, for me personally, if it is wacky, crazy, and something a little bit more wild, I don't care what's on the bike, I just want that frame. But as a lot of you know, I'm also into that kind of proper crusty, patina, beautiful, chipped, rusted, awful paint. So that's again very subjective. It depends on kind of what you want to get out of the bike. If you want to do a complete restore and kind of have this gleaming bike, you ain't going to go for that bike. If you want something that's going to be your new pub bike or a kind of commuter that, like, if it gets nicked, then those proper crusty wild paint jobs is probably what you're after. And then the last one is the steerer. Threaded stems are a pain in the butt a lot of the time. They're nearly always seized. There's not a lot of options when it comes to like upgrading them. And then the forks, they're also pretty naff, especially when you go down the route of trying to upgrade it or getting a different one if this one's broken and stuff like that. So if you can find a retro steel bike that has that 1/1/8 steerer, then you can pretty much put any modern fork on there, which opens up the world of resto mods and upgrades and cool looking forks and whatever else. So those are the 3 things I personally look for. But if I'm really honest with you guys, it's kind of down to what you really want to get out of the bike. So is it worth it? If you're happy and the price is good and you can afford it, it's probably worth it, isn't it? If you're still watching this point, thank you very much. I know these kind of videos are a little bit more rambly than a lot of my builds and kind of more specific videos, but I kind of like talking to you guys and sharing information about how I do what I do. So hopefully there was something in this that's helped you, and now you've got a better idea of how to go and find one of those bikes. The bike in question, the Saracen, if you follow me on Instagram you already know this, but the seat post is seized. It was a bike that I was going to build this week, and I started it and now I've stopped. I regularly get asked by you guys about how the best way to get a seat post out of a bike. So now we have the bike to test it on, and hopefully in the next soon I'll have a video about how to remove a seized seat post. Or it'll be stuck forever. We'll have to wait and see. But that's that. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait till next week's video, why don't you watch this one, because this one is a particularly good one.